My name is Average Joe, and I'm a proud geek with expertise in movies, superheroes, and animation.
My name is Beef Pork Ribs. I'm a fine repository of esoteric knowledge, which I suppose most people would qualify as geeky. Though I dabble in many fandoms, my main areas of expertise are anime, movies, and Belgian comics, with a strong recent insurgency of D&D.
Our mission is to bring nerd and geek culture to the masses
By sticking it all under the microscope.
Welcome to the Bat Jar Podcast.
Movies, comics, graphic novels, TV, cartoons, animation, nerds are geeks, entertainment culture. Hear it on the Bat Jar, Nerdy Power. Nerds and geeks, come gather around the scene. Come and join us in the Bat Jar. Come and tune into Average Joe and his team. Lots of room here in the Bat Jar. When the newest nerdy news drops, these podcast pals put it under the scope. DC, Marvel, Disney, Star Wars, cinematic multiverses, mega Christmas, Stranger's franchise. Hear it on the Bat Jar, Nerdy Power.
Hello there, and welcome to the Bat Jar Podcast, where we put nerd and geek culture under the microscope.
Public service announcement, if I'm coughing, it's asthma, not coronavirus.
Yes, so we are now 1 week into the, well, for me anyway, we in Canada we've been told to socially distance ourselves from other people if we're healthy and socially isolate ourselves if we're showing any symptoms of COVID-19. So I'm healthy. I've now been staying at home for a week, working from home, and really aside from having Beef Pork Ribs over for the podcast and, of course, living with Professor F, I have not seen many people except online. Been doing a lot of playing card games with people online, Uno and Dominion.
Oh, wow.
So I'm finding ways to be social even though I can't go out. But I've been enjoying myself for the most part. And BPR, or I'm going to start calling you Beeper, which is like an abbreviation of your name.
Why?
Beef Pork Ribs is hard to say over and over again, don't you find?
No, but I've been saying it for years, so, it kind of goes that way. I've been pretty busy. I've got at least 4 different online Dungeons and Dragons games that are being set up, so that'll be fun.
Well, BPR, we are joined by a guest today, somebody who has been on the show before. In fact, he's been on the show twice before, so we welcome back Minty Python to the Bat Jar Podcast.
Thanks for having me, gentlemen.
So we're practicing our social distancing, so we're kind of far, but we're not really any farther away than we'd normally be from each other on the show.
I am actually in an entirely different room than average Joseph at this time.
Well, we could be in different continents. Thanks to the miracle of technology.
It's true. And who knows, maybe as this situation continues, we'll be more inclined to use virtual recording software, which I have recently gained access to. All at the same, Minty Python, it's good to have you back. We are here today to talk about the year 2017. We're getting towards the end of the decade now.
Good year. Better than last year.
Yes. Well, 2016 sucks, but 2017, Beeper, what were you doing that year?
I was still in Alberta. I believe that was the last year I was there. I was finishing my education degree, which is always fun. And, that's about the gist. Oh, I was painting a lot.
Warhammer painting, correct?
Yes, painting Warhammer minis a lot.
I thought you were talking about like paintings and
No.
landscape
I'm not.
portraits.
I'm not that
It's
good. But several, close to 200 minis were painted that year by me. So that's something. Well, between 2017 and 2018, I painted close to 200 minis. So that was pretty good.
So you painted like the minis, like the cars?
No. The soldiers, miniatures,
I
for.
know. It was supposed to be a joke.
That seems very tedious.
That would be pretty nice, though. Yeah, especially eye sockets. Those are very tedious. But, I could rant about the models of the Necron soldiers and where the lines are, but I won't.
So, Minty Python, what were you doing in 2017?
In 2017, that would have covered parts of my 3rd and 4th year of university. So I was studying.
Exciting things.
Yeah, I think I went to California that year for a little trip in the summer.
This man's also a philosophy major.
Yeah, I specialize in philosophy. Thank you very much.
Ah.
Yeah,
That is different.
Yeah. So needless to say, I can't remember a ton of like specifics from that year. Just studying and probably working in the summer. No, I definitely was working in the summer. So
Yeah, for me, I was working the same job I have now. I remember 2017 mainly because it was a year our team shrunk in size from 6 to 3 people, so it was a fairly busy year for me, and it actually led to me reaching a point where I needed to go on a weekend retreat just to kind of like take a break from work. So I went all the way to Vancouver, and it was I went to this place called Maple something. No, wait, not there.
Maple Ridge?
No, it wasn't Maple Ridge. It was
Sounds like it would be called Maple Ridge.
It was somewhere like 3 hours.
Maple Leafs products, like
No.
the beets?
It was like 3 hours from Vancouver. I don't remember the name of it.
Were they
now.
called Mission?
No, I think it was like a Princeton.
Maple Mission?
Princeton, BC. That's what it was.
Oh.
Very beautiful place. If you ever have the chance, I recommend going there. And then aside from that, yeah, just living the life, doing the podcast with Asian John still at that point, 2017. Nothing really extraordinary happened that year, and that might spill over into our conversation about the year itself. So, first of all, just some general, not nearly as many kind of major pop culture events that happened this year. So there's, of course, for each of these stories, we're going to give it a cookie or a noogie. The first thing, which is kind of the most unpleasant thing to discuss, is that 2017 was the year of the Me Too movement. I mean, it's still going on now, but it was really started in 2017 when a bunch of allegations of misconduct were brought forward against Harvey Weinstein, and it just sort of snowballed from there. And there's a number of people like Harvey Weinstein who have essentially lost opportunities to work in Hollywood because of the things that they have done. I don't know if we want to say anything more about this other than just the whole situation deserves a bat noogie.
Really? I'm actually inclined to go the other way and say that it's something that has been making, like yes, it was a very unfortunate situation, but it's been making progress about things that were kind of hidden that people made jokes about, but never actually addressed. I think the fact that they started addressing it kind of gives it a bad cookie, in my opinion. But for the opposite reason, like, yes, it was a terrible situation. The kind of like the crap that went around it kind of deserves maybe a bad noogie, but the fact that it started and that it's still going and that it's still something that's affecting the industry, I think, in a positive way overall, deserves a bad cookie.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. Like, I meant to say, like, the fact that these things were happening was
that's exactly.
Because it even impacted, like, Honest Trailers and Screen Junkies. It even impacted them. They're the main guy who was the host of their podcast, Movie Fights. He was found out to have done some stuff, and he was totally removed from their company altogether. So, no matter where you went in the nerd culture world, this stuff was there.
That's true.
So, and it's even come up in anime in the English voice acting community as well. So, I agree. Bat cookie for bringing awareness to things that were being hidden, but bat noogie to find out those things were happening. Minty Python, cookie or noogie for you?
Can I give it both for the reasons that beef pork ribs cited, and then the reasons
it's not that hard
you
to say
cited?
Yes, sounds good.
I was just trying to make sure I was saying the right name.
So the Nintendo Switch was the big kind of video game launch of the year. After really, swinging and missing with the Wii U, Nintendo came back with what was the first console that I understand was also a portable system, and that was a huge thing for people.
I don't feel like the Wii U was that big of a swing and a miss. It's still, like, I don't know. The strength of Nintendo is that they always try new things, and sometimes they don't go as well, which I think that the Wii U wasn't as good, but I think it was the precursor that was needed for the Switch, because people were like, yeah, this tablet idea is great, but I wish I could take it away. And they're like, oh, let's do that. But it definitely was a much bigger hit, and like huge bad cookie. Nintendo is owning the video game industry right now because of the Switch.
Minty Python, you've lived with our friend Pixel Patch, who was a huge advocate of the Nintendo Switch. Do you have any positive experiences with this thing?
Yeah, so my exposure to Nintendo Switch is quite high. Yeah, probably overexposed. Pixel Patch was a big fan. I don't know I think I must have like played with him at some point. I don't know. So I don't have anything bad to say about it. I don't have anything good to say about it either.
Oh, well, so then I'll give it a bat cookie for sure.
Yeah.
I haven't played much of it myself, but from what I've seen, it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, like I think is that the thing you'd use to play that new Zelda game?
Yep. Well,
Okay.
yeah, it's like red and blue.
Yeah, it's like a big Game Boy.
Yeah, it's kind of like a big Game Boy.
Oh, okay.
It's a big Game Boy. You can also plug
Yeah.
it into your TV.
Yeah.
It's great.
Oh, also it has the detachable side, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I remember playing with those like games with Pixel Patch and other people. That was fun.
So that should give it a bad cookie, right?
Sure, yeah.
Before Gribbs, I think.
I mean, I think if it's not well established by now in this podcast, let it be well established. I'm a huge Nintendo fanboy, and the Switch was great and still is.
So that means.
Oh yeah, big bet cookie.
That's what I thought. And then the third kind of general story of the year. Right at the end of 2017, in December actually, it was announced that Disney was going to acquire 20th Century Fox as the movie studio. And all the nerds and geeks went, finally, the Marvel characters that have been held captive by Fox will return home, and we'll get to have the X-Men and the Fantastic Four and the MCU. We haven't really seen the fruit of this yet, but we are starting to see now that it did take it wasn't until 2019 that the deal was finalized, because it had to go through a bunch of antitrust law screening in the United States to make sure it wasn't affecting the competition of the market. And I'm very excited about this. I'm glad it happened. It certainly helped build the catalog of content for Disney Plus. And I'm looking forward to the eventual inclusion of the MCU having the X-Men and the Fantastic Four in there.
I guess that's why the 80s like X-Men cartoon is on Disney Plus, so I can't be that upset about it.
Yeah, I have no real attachment to this acquisition, so I'll give it a bad cookie.
I'll give it a bat cookie with the added kind of side glance. If anybody ever reads the manga Billy Bat, it's basically about a company very similar to Disney that ends up owning the world. We're taking a step in that direction. That's terrifying, but at the same time, hopefully it won't happen. So still bat cookie.
Joe, aren't you a big fan of Disney owning the world?
I am Average Joe. Thank you very much. I don't know why no one can get that right on this show.
What did I call you? I can't even remember.
You just called me Joe,
Oh.
but my name is Average Joe, so
AJ.
Deepest, sincerest apologies.
forgiven. Moving on now to our categories for the year. So we first, of course, will talk about video games. Here are the top 5 best-selling video games of the year, according to Forbes. And this is a US-based list, so that's an important thing to consider. Number 5, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. This is, of course, the Zelda game that went with the Nintendo Switch. I've heard about it, never played it.
How is it only number 5? That game like redefined the Legend of Zelda series, kind of redefined what open world was. Like it's such a good game. It's magnificent. It's beautiful. It's got a great soundtrack. Who cares about the story? It is an open world game. It's about crafting things, cooking, and running around as Link, though. Except, it's such a good game. Bat cookie. But I am actually like kind of surprised it's in the top 5 in a way, because Nintendo hitting the top 5, especially as we've been seeing the games that do make it, and even still this year made it there, it is kind of impressive. But at the same time, it's one of those things Nintendo does when they release a new console. They need to have like either a Mario game or a Zelda game or something that's going to sell it, and that's Breath of the Wild was the thing that sold the Switch. And I think that's a big part of it. Like everybody who got the Switch in the first year, it was because of Breath of the Wild.
I never played Breath of the Wild, but again, my former roommate Pixel Patch played it extensively. And I will say, like, it was very hypnotizing. Like, it was very pleasant to watch someone else play.
Yeah, I've played it a little bit, but mostly I have watched my roommate play it for hours on end and been perfectly all right sitting beside him on the couch watching him play.
I don't know if I watched for hours, but it's definitely the only video game that I could just sit there and be like, oh, this is pleasant to watch for a little bit, when you're not actually playing. So if that says anything.
Well, I guess based on what you guys are saying, I have to give it a bad cookie. The 4th best-selling game, Madden NFL 18. So basketball and football games typically make this list every year.
Sometimes soccer, not very often.
So I don't care for football. Bat noogie for me.
Yeah, that noogie.
I'm just really shocked that a football video game is popular.
Well, some years it's been like the second best-selling game. So,
That's incredible to me.
So what,
Wow.
what does that do for you?
I think
Cookie
it
or noogie?
also.
It does absolutely nothing for me.
I think it
You
also
gotta-
has to
you
do
gotta
with like
give it a
it's
cookie or
it's
a
an
noogie.
American it is an American website
fair
though,
enough.
right? So like the sale like it does kind of skew the statistic I think towards like that one and the one we're going to see at number 2 as well. Whereas I think worldwide probably Breath of the Wild would have been higher because I know also it sold really well in Asia.
Well, I have no reason to give it a bat noogie. So I'd give it a cookie. A bat
Oh,
cookie.
what? Fine.
Sorry, he hasn't been doing this for the last like 7 episodes.
For the third best-selling game, Destiny 2. So Destiny, when the first one came out, made the top 10 list.
Yep.
I don't know anything about Destiny 2.
I vaguely remember people being disappointed in Destiny 2. Like, not like it was terrible, but in a, like, it was super hyped and everybody bought it and they were like, oh, this wasn't that great.
I know absolutely nothing about Destiny 2.
All right, I'm giving it a bat noogie.
Yeah, give it a bat noogie. Although, good on beating out Madden, I guess.
I'll just go with the consensus, noogie.
The second best-selling game of the year, NBA 2K18.
Again, why?
Have I mentioned recently that I think it's, like, very odd and also kind of, I don't know, a weird kind of pandering or, like, what are they trying to do by calling the basketball game 2K something instead of 2000? Like, you know what I mean? I'm not sure where that comes from.
Fun. Well, 2K mean like 2000.
Oh, no, I understand what it means, but why is basketball the only sport game? And, like, these are all EA Sports owns franchises. Like, it's not like it's a different company making it.
Right.
They just decided that basketball is going to be 2K something instead of 2000 or just the last 2 numbers, right?
That's fair.
Must have been a decision made in some backroom marketing or advertising meeting.
Yeah, I don't care for basketball video games either, so this is getting a bat noogie for me.
Yeah, as well. That's why I added the thing about the 2K, because we've been saying Bat Noogie to NBA for the last few episodes.
I'll give this one a bat cookie.
Oh, what?
You like basketball?
No.
All right.
I don't know. I just want to spice it up.
And the top-selling video game of 2017, Call of Duty World War II. So, Minty Python, for your information, there's basically been only 1 year so far in the past decade where a Call of Duty video game has not been the top-selling game. So, to Beeper and I, it's no surprise that a Call of Duty title is the top of the list here. And I tried to find out some information about this specific game that made it, because it's like if there's a Call of Duty game every year that's the top-selling game, what else can you say about it? So I think, Minty Python, if we can get you to read that first bullet point I pulled out.
Sure, yeah. The multiplayer mode feature... Excuse me, I'm just going to start over. The multiplayer mode features map locations not seen in the campaign. The mode also features the new division system, replacing the create a class system that previous games in the series used. A social hub headquarters was also implemented into the game, allowing for players to interact with each other.
All right, so Beeper, since you're the one who's most familiar with these kind of video games, can you interpret what that means?
Well, I mean, multiplayer having maps that are not in the campaign means that they actually had specific maps, specific places you could play for multiplayer, which is kind of cool, I think. Which also, I think, points towards, again, Call of Duty being very heavily multiplayer based. And again, they talk about the social hub headquarters, which probably is like a voice speech interface, something to make the experience more sociable. And I think it is kind of leaning on what would be seen as its strength, the fact that you just casually hop on, talk to people, and hop off. So I don't know. It seems like they're just, at least in this case, I feel like the other ones are just they're doing the same thing. I feel like this shows proof, that they're trying to improve their already existing model, which doesn't show originality, but at least shows valuing what the customers want.
Yeah, and the other note here I found said that a lot of people were enjoying the fact that it kind of returned back to the franchise's roots of being a period piece set during World War II, because they were getting more and more sci-fi with a lot of the Call of Duty games. So I guess that's a good thing. But then it also says that the campaign was criticized for being too similar to other games set during the same era. So,
I mean, there are a limited amount of battles in World War II that actually happened, and so there's a limited amount of games levels you could make, and it's not like you can do that many for World War One, because like an accurate World War One simulator game would be sitting in trenches for several months at a time and shooting everyone. So World War II was in that sense more exciting.
Well, I guess based on the fact that it says that the health bar returned to the single-player game, I'm going to give this one a bad cookie, because I can't imagine playing a shooting game without knowing how much health I had.
Sure. Let's give it a bad cookie. It seems like they're doing good things.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give it a bad cookie too, I guess.
But a Thinsation one.
Oh, no, I'm giving a full one, but you're a Thinsation.
No, I'm a Thinsation.
Well, I'll only give it one just based on the fact that it's kind of impressive how well these games have performed over the last decade, right? So that in itself is a good accomplishment on their behalf. So,
all right, moving on to the most played games on Steam. Number 5, we have Grand Theft Auto 5. So, and I looked, it's on their top selling list, and it was indeed in the top 10 best-selling video games. Again, I'm just flabbergasted that this GTA thing is still selling so well, 4 years after its original release.
Yeah, it is pretty impressive. I will say.
So wait, people are still buying that exact same game? They're not releasing new ones?
Well, they do have downloadable content that is still being released, so there is reason to keep up to date with the game, which is why I'm not surprised that it's still in the most played game, but the fact that it is still selling 10 years later is pretty 5 years later at this point, or 4 years? 4 years. It is still pretty impressive, yes.
Oh, okay.
Bad cookie.
Yeah, sure.
No, I won't give it. I'll give it the noogie one. Just I don't like that game.
Two finger
True.
noogie.
2-finger noogie.
There we go. Number 4, Rainbow Six Siege. I think we spoke about this one last time, or maybe we didn't.
We talked about CSGO.
Okay, what's Rainbow Six Siege? Is this another shooting game?
It is. Yeah, it is actually singularly similar. Whereas Counter-Strike, it's terrorists versus SWAT teams. This is basically SWAT teams against criminals, as I recall. But it is a pretty similar kind of game mode where you have, except this one has more specialized roles that you have, which change the weapon and what you try to do in the missions. Whereas CSGO, it's everybody basically gets more or less the same sets of guns and does the things. But this was really, but it is a game that's very much about teamwork, short missions, and trying to get the objective done and playing against another team.
All right, I'll give that a Thinsation bad cookie.
Sure.
I'll give it a bat cookie because although I've never heard of this game before until this very moment, I like the name. Rainbow Six Siege. That's pretty cool.
Sure.
Yeah.
Number 3 most played is Counter-Strike Go, which stands for what?
Global Offensive.
Global Offensive.
So CSGO, Counter-Strike, Global Offensive.
Right. Well, we talked about this game last week. It's apparently
It still does very well in the competitive scene. It's one of the reasons people play it so much.
I'll give it a Thinsation bad cookie.
I like esport growing. I'll give it a full-on bat cookie.
I'll give it a full-on bat cookie for a cool name.
Number 2, Dota 2. You spoke about this last week, basically saying how it's like a knockoff of a better game.
I mean, the Dota fans would disagree with me heavily, but yes, Dota 2 is still, a worse League of Legends.
Dota means Defense of the Ancients.
Yes.
Is that right?
Oh,
Exactly.
okay.
It was a mod of Warcraft back in the day, and then the second one is its own game.
So I'll give it a Thinsation bad cookie.
I'm going to go to Noogie for this. I don't like Dota, but there is a true rivalry between Dota and League, and I've always been on the side of League of Legends. So,
Joe, I'll just go with you on this one.
Yeah, Noogie?
Yeah.
Or did I say Thinsation?
I can't remember what you said. That's why I just said
no, you said Thinsation
I
cookie.
did say, okay.
Oh, okay.
There you go. And the most played game on Steam this year, something
PUBG.
called Player Unknown's Battleground. Also, for whatever reason, is
PUBG.
Called PUBG for short.
I don't know why.
That's a cool name.
Yeah, I mean it's the game that stole Fortnite's idea.
What?
Technically, Fortnite. Well, Fortnite really is given flack for copying PUBG, but they were created pretty much around the same time, and now everybody every new shooter game that's not Call of Duty. Basically, is trying to do the same thing. It's a it's a battle royale game, which means everybody is kind of fighting each other. Oh. You're all airdropped onto this island, and then radiation is moving in, so there's a circle on the map getting smaller and smaller, and you have to like not die to radiation and also kill other players, and last man standing wins. It's an interesting concept. It's now been done by at least 2 major games and a bunch of knockoffs.
Sounds like the Smash Bros equivalent of shooting games.
Something like that. Yeah. I think it was this thing everybody was like super excited when it came out, and it's the thing that made the streamer Ninja popular, or was it Fortnite that made? I think he started in PUBG, but it was a big thing, and people still play these games, but I don't like them personally. I find that it's completely single player, but there's way too much. I think there's 30 players at the beginning of the game, so the skill level involved fluctuates immensely.
Oh, but that's where I thrive, because I'm not good at video games.
Yeah, well, that's why I don't like it, is because it's just so odd, and I do find that actually Fortnite did end up being a better game, and I can't believe I'm saying that, but...
Bat cookie for me.
I give it a bat noogie.
Is PUBG in any way responsible for Fortnite dances?
No. That's something Fortnite stole from other people.
Okay, I'll give PUBG bat cookie then.
And moving on to some indie games from the year.
These are some...
Pyre? Didn't know anything.
I don't either.
Our general rule of thumb with these indie games is if we don't recognize it at all, it gets a bat noogie.
Yeah, I think so.
So you're punishing it for not being popular enough?
Yes.
Yeah, it's an indie game.
That's fair. But shouldn't that be a good thing? The less people know about it, the more indie it is?
Well, yes, but
we're not judging its indiness. We're judging how good they were, or how much of an impact they had, really.
Like, for example, Cuphead.
Everybody's heard of Cuphead.
Yeah.
Even I have heard
of
Cuphead.
Wow.
Yeah.
I was expecting this to be one of those things where I say, everybody's heard of it, and you're like, no, I haven't.
Well, it's because he lived with Pixel Patch.
Oh,
yeah, but
right.
I don't know what the game looks like. Like, I don't know
It looks like rubber hose animation.
Like, what's the point of the game?
Looking like rubber hose animation is the point of the game.
Okay.
It is. It's a game that was animated with like hand-drawn animation. Which is like
it's coming back.
Yeah, in the style of like old
side-scrolling.
cartoons.
Okay.
And, yeah, it's a side scroller shoot 'em up. It's gorgeous game, has great music, very good boss design, and generally also was very big in the speedrunning community for obvious reasons that it's a run and gun. So
Bat Cookie.
yeah, Bat Cookie. That it looks great too. Sure.
Local host. Never heard of this one.
I haven't either.
Me neither.
Bat Noogies.
Bat Noogies, I guess.
Detention. I looked up into this one because I was interested by the name. Apparently, it's like these 2 Taiwanese students in like this haunted high school that's set in the 1960s, and it's like a mystery game. It seemed really strange.
You know, I've never heard of it, but that description makes me think it kind of deserves a Bat Cookie, even a Sensation one.
Yeah, I'll give it a Sensation one just based on the description. I'm guessing you haven't heard of this, Minty Python.
Nah, sounds whack.
So what does that give it for you?
Nuggy.
All right. Hollow Knight.
Again, I know this game because of AGDQ, which is a speedrunning marathon that happens every year. I think I mentioned it on the podcast before, but it's a side-scroller game. It is it's a gorgeous game, and it's, it's very good at speedrunning, but it's also kind of like got really nice music. It's a very like black and white, not completely black and white, but very like sharp contrast between colors aesthetic. And it's got a lore that the more you play the game, the more you get into it, but also that you can just casually look at it and be like, oh, this is cool. Let's play this game. Bat Cookie for sure. It's a gorgeous game, and I've played it a few times, and it's really fun too.
All right, your enthusiasm is enough to make me throw a Bat Cookie at it.
Yeah, why not?
Good.
And then we have Doki Doki Literature Club, which I've never played, but I've seen people talk about on YouTube, and
so you know what it's about.
Yeah, it's like
is it like I feel like it's been out long enough that we can spoil things.
Yeah, I was trying to explain to Minty Python the idea of what a dating simulator is.
Yeah, I'd never heard of that before.
Really?
Yeah. So
there's a famous dating simulator in which you're the only girl in a high school full of pigeons.
This is just so weird.
This is not
try
it,
online dating or something.
Well, the whole point of Doki Doki Literature Club is that it presents itself as a conventional dating simulator. So you're an unseen, unnamed male character trying to essentially pursue romantic relationships with these female characters, and you're given text options that essentially choose where the story goes.
There is only Monica.
I'm actually disturbed. Like, this is unhealthy, I think.
That's a fun. I mean, I've never played one, but I've seen people like on YouTube play them, and it is kind of fun to like try and like guess based on the text in the.
Yeah, that's the thing. It depends how you approach it. If you approach it as like I'm trying to manipulate the story to be able to see what the different endings with the different girls are, then that's one thing. If you are legitimately looking for comfort in a virtual relationship, then it becomes a little more disturbing.
But where and so like Doki Doki is like an expression like to mean like your heart is beating fast, like as if you're like
okay.
It's like, oh, like I'm attracted to this person, so that's why it's called Doki Doki. It's like basically Heartbeat Literature Club. But from what I understand is that basically it reaches a point in the game where it just kind of takes a deep dive into horror and it becomes totally like not what you expect.
Are we throwing spoilers?
Sure.
Or?
I mean,
essentially, the game presents itself as one of the girls that you can pick from, her AI being self-aware and basically changing the programming of the other girls so that they end up committing suicide or being unlovable. And by the end of the run through, you actually have to go into the code, like into the program files, and delete the file of Monica so that you can beat the game and make her disappear. It's hilarious,
Unsettling,
and it is very unsettling. And watching people play this game, and that was one of the big things that made it super popular, is nobody knew this at first. And so there were a bunch of people on YouTube, Let's Players, who were like, we got to keep this a secret, and like force their friends to play it without giving them any background except maybe like the basic background on dating sims. And it made for some amazing reaction shots.
Yeah, and I think just because it caused such a stir and it became like a phenomenon, I got to give it a back cookie.
Oh, yeah. I bit it back cookies. It's hilarious and super dark.
The concept is just too weird for me, so I'll give it a bat noogie.
Fair enough. Moving on now to TV shows from 2017. Here is our list of the most watched shows, again from the Nielsen rankings. Surprisingly, NCIS was the 5th most watched show this year.
How the mighty have fallen.
It's really dipping. I mean, if you see, it's pretty close to some of these other shows, so it's really as if there's really only like first and second. But still, for your information, Minty Python, NCIS has been on this list of most watched shows every year. It started at like 3rd, rose to the top, and then just last year it slipped down to 2nd place, and now it's in 5th. I still maintain that its popularity comes from the fact that it has good characters. And I found out today that it's actually a spin-off of the show Jag, which I was shocked to find out.
That makes a lot of sense, though, come to think of it. Because when you described to me what it was, I'm like, that sounds like Jag.
Okay, good.
I had never heard of JAG before this.
But had you heard of NCIS?
I think I had heard the acronym before, but I wouldn't have known that was a TV show.
All right, well, I'll still give NCIS a bat cookie.
I'm giving a sensation bat cookie for having learned new information about it.
Yeah, I'll go with beef pork ribs on that one.
The 4th most watched show was Young Sheldon.
This is a spin-off of Big Bang Theory?
It's a spin-off prequel of the Big Bang Theory.
I did not know that existed.
I knew that. Wow.
It's a show about Sheldon Cooper when he's like 9 years old and going to high school in Texas. If you grew up in the late 90s, early 2000s, there was a show called Smart Guy about an elementary school student, like he was a little kid, but he was super smart. So he went to high school with like his older brother and older sister. And I was like, when I saw Young Sheldon was being announced, I'm like, this is basically just Smart Guy, except it's got the branding of the Big Bang Theory attached to it.
So that must make you happy because you
So
love
it's like
reboots.
Doogie Howard.
Doogie Howser.
Howser, that's the one. Yeah.
Yeah, kind of like that, except he's not. That's kind of like more like the next show we're talking about, actually. But but Young Sheldon, it's also kind of like, have you seen Everybody Hates Chris? That show about Chris Rock as a kid.
I may have seen.
I've heard of it.
Okay, well, it's like adult Sheldon or Jim Parsons is narrating the show, and he's like reflecting on his childhood from the adult perspective. So it's like the Wonder Years or A Christmas Story, even, wherein it kind of like you get that insight of like the adult and the child. But of course, since Sheldon Cooper is kind of so in his own little world anyway, it's as if he's just an older child reflecting on being a younger child.
I feel like it's just riding the popularity of Big Bang Theory, though.
Yeah,
It doesn't sound like anything interesting
my
or I'd want
parents
to watch.
have watched it. I've watched it here and there, but I don't enjoy it as much. I liked Smart Guy's a better show of this idea. So I'll give it a Thin Station Bat Cookie.
I'll give it a Bat Noogie.
I'll give it a Bat Noogie.
The third most watched show, another new show this year. I should mention that Young Sheldon started this year. But The Good Doctor, which is a show about Freddie Highmore, the kid from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, just older, is this like genius medical. He's somehow he's able to become a doctor and a surgeon, even though he's like young.
But I feel like he's not as young as Doogie was.
Probably not. But he also is like autistic, so he's like a little different. And that's part of the I don't want to say the gimmick, but that's part of the the difference of the show is that the main character is on the autistic spectrum. So I've never actually watched it. I've just seen commercials for it.
I was vaguely aware that it existed. Had no idea what it was about.
Bat Noogie for poor marketing.
I'll give it Thin Station Bat Cookie because I liked the marketing. And this year, The Big Bang Theory is rated as the second most watched TV show. Even though in terms of average ratings, it's about the same as the number one show. It was actually the number one show last year, and so now it's dipped down to second place. So I think we were at the apex of The Big Bang Theory's popularity last year, and now we're starting to see it go down again.
Isn't it over now? Like
it's over now in 2020, but this is 2017. We're talking about.
Yeah. It must have been close to the end, though.
Yeah.
Because it's been over for a little while now, hasn't it?
I think it ended in 2019.
Oh, wow. So I was not following that at all. So
how many seasons did it have?
Like 12 or 14.
That's too many for that show.
I'll still give it a Bat Cookie.
I'll give it a Bat Noogie.
All together? Wow.
Well, a lot of this is arbitrary for me, right?
I mean, all of this is arbitrary, let's be honest. But
even more so for me.
Beef pork ribs, what's your cookie?
I said noogie for Big Bang Theory.
And for the first time in the whole decade, Sunday Night Football is emerging as the most watched television show. I think because this is really the point where streaming is becoming more and more popular, that it's gotten to the point where like event television like football is finally like surpassing all of the network TV shows. Because if I look at this number here, 18.5 million average viewership, compared to like numbers we had for earlier in the decade, these are actually lower numbers.
Yeah.
But it still puts it up as the highest program. So I don't know if it's necessary to say that football all of a sudden became more interesting, but maybe it's just fewer people are again watching.
I don't know who won the Super Bowl that year.
I don't know. Maybe this was when Deflategate was happening.
2017?
Yeah. Do you remember?
Let's think back.
Yes.
Oh, let's just guess the Patriots.
And we'll say maybe this was Deflategate. Maybe that's why it was so interesting.
Sure, whatever that is.
Oh, when they let some of the air out of the ball so it would like spin better or something.
Yeah.
Tom Brady's a cheater.
I don't like football, though, so I'm giving this a Bat Noogie.
Yeah, as well.
I watch football once a year, Super Bowl Sunday, and I love it. So I'll give it a Bat Cookie.
Moving on to the most streamed shows. These are 5 of the most watched shows on Netflix.
Huh.
The article I got came from Maxim of all places, but here are the top 5 shows from, I think this is all streaming, but I think this might also just be Netflix, so forgive me.
They are all Netflix shows.
So the 5th most watched show is called Ozark.
It's a good show.
I threw a description in there because I'd never heard of it before.
Really? Oh, it's Jason Bateman.
Yeah.
No, wait.
But it's not a funny role.
No, it isn't.
Yeah, and he does a really good job.
Yeah.
So you both seen the show.
I have.
Yeah.
I've seen the first season.
I've seen.
I don't know if there is a second season, but I did watch the first season.
Yeah, there are 2 seasons, and I think the third one's coming out at the end of the month.
All right, well, should I give it a cookie or a noogie, guys?
Oh, I'd say give it a cookie. Like, I think it is it does kind of fall into the whole like crime thing that kind of is riding a little bit on the popularity of Breaking Bad, but it offered something kind of new, and I really liked how it kind of leaned into the family dynamic and less into the like main character's lying to his family and trying to keep it a secret, and more like main character is brutally honest with his family and they're trying to cope with it. And I thought that was one of the strengths of the show, was that it was like going into the psychology of all the different members of the family instead of just being like how him lying to his family changed it. It was like how him being completely honest with his family from day one basically also changed them, and in a way brought them closer rather than separating them, which I thought was kind of a bold move to make on their part to say like, yeah, no, knowing that they were a criminal organization actually brought this family closer. Whereas like every other show where there's a criminal boss who's like hiding it from his family, it kind of tears them apart. So yeah.
Minty, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with beef pork ribs kind of analysis there. I'll give it a bat cookie because I just enjoy any show that kind of delves into the reasons people will justify their crimes. And it's an interesting show. I don't want to say it's thought provoking because it's crime, but like I enjoyed it for sure.
All right, bat cookie, why not?
Yeah, and good characterization.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and it makes you want to watch the next one, right? So
The fourth most watched show was 13 Reasons Why. In anticipation of this show coming out, I heard what it was about, and I instantly said to myself, this is not a show I'd be interested in. And I know the show faced a lot of controversy when it came out for justifying and glorifying suicide. And I'm amazed that the show continues to get...
Not just that, but even like literally going against like the American Psychological Association recommendations about how to approach that subject in media. Like literally going against like research on what you should and shouldn't show on TV and how you should and shouldn't show it. Like I don't understand how that show got made.
Yeah, I never watched it. I don't think I ever will. I find it kind of reprehensible.
Yeah, Bat Noogies.
Bat Noogie.
Yeah.
Number 3, Narcos. I know you've watched this show, Minty Python, because you tell me about it.
Yeah, I enjoy this show a lot. I do worry about kind of the glorification or the, romanticizing the cartels and whatnot. Because they kind of show the bad guys are always these kind of like good looking, kind of badass characters. But at the end of it, when I like after watching the show, I never think, I want to be a drug lord now. But I enjoy crime as a genre, or an organized crime especially. So yeah, I enjoy them.
I never watched it, and I could be wrong, but it just seemed like it was more generic. Like,
oh, totally, yeah.
Yeah, I think I'll give it a Bat Noogie then, because if it is basically what it sounds like, then it's not something that particularly interests me, and I feel like, again, like Breaking Bad did a decent enough job of showing that kind of a show, but then other shows, if they don't have something new to offer, which I think Ozark did, then I don't really like them.
All right, Bat Noogie for me.
It'd be a bat cookie for me.
Number 2, Stranger Things Season 2. We talked about this last week when it was a new show.
Yeah.
And you think it has steadily gone downhill.
I do know a lot of people say that the second season is the best. I disagree. I still think the first one was the best, but that's not to say that the second season was in any way, shape, or form bad. I just think that the way it was approached and the way it was encompassed in the first season was better. But then again, it may have also had to do with the fact that the first season was designed so that it could be the end of the show if it was canceled and still be a satisfying ending, whereas I felt like the second season had more setups for things to come, but some of which still haven't really paid off, and so I'm not sure how to feel about that.
I haven't seen it at all, so
you should get on that.
That
cookie, though, still.
Yeah, how many seasons did you say there were?
There are 3 currently. The 4th one's coming out soon.
Oh, dear. Okay, I watched the first one and enjoyed it, and that really took me by surprise that I enjoyed it, so I'd give it a bat cookie based on that. I thought there were only 2 seasons, so I can't remember if I've seen them all, but I remember not liking the seasons that came after the first one. Seasons, however many I watched.
And the most streamed show is, once again, Orange is the New Black.
I still don't understand how it's that high. Like,
Yeah,
I've
I guess you'd have to actually watch it to find out.
Maybe? But I just remember, like, seeing so many ads for that show and being like, who would watch this?
I've never seen it.
And I still feel that way.
I've never even seen the ads for it, I don't think.
I'm going to give it a 2-finger Bat Noogie.
I'll give it a full-on Bat Noogie.
Yeah, I'll go with a full-on bat noogie.
Okay, going quickly through new shows to start this year, we have Riverdale.
Bat Noogie. It's awful.
Yeah, we did an episode on Riverdale when the pilot came out, and from the start, Asian John and I could tell this was not a show meant for us. So, yeah, Bat Noogie for me. You beef pork ribs? Or you're not beef pork ribs. Who are you?
Get it right, man.
Minty Python.
Minty Python. Yeah, Bat Noogie. Never watched it.
The Handmaid's Tale. For any of these streaming shows, I put the service they're on next year just because if you look at the list, there's a lot of the new shows that are noteworthy are from streaming services. So like The Handmaid's Tale is from Hulu, and I know this show's gotten a lot of buzz at the award shows. Based on the premise, it doesn't sound like a show I'd be too interested in.
Never heard of it, Bat Noogie, but a thin one.
Bat Noogie.
I'll give a one knuckle Bat Noogie to all the ones I haven't heard of because there's a few in here.
The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel is
Same thing.
Amazon series. Zachary Levi has a supporting role in this show. Is that enough to get you to give it a...
No, it
Okay.
isn't.
I haven't seen it yet. I've only seen it advertised on TV, actually, even though it's an Amazon show. So I'll give it a Thin Station Bat Cookie.
I'll give it a Bat Noogie.
Star Trek Discovery. So this is a show that actually aired on a CBS streaming service called CBS All Access, and then in Canada got picked up for the Space Channel, so it actually aired on TV here, even though it was a streaming service show in the U.S. I haven't yet seen it. I've seen posters. That's about all I've seen of it. So, and I'm not a huge Star Trek person, so it gets a Bat Noogie for me.
I give it a Bat Noogie because I feel like the newer Picard show is picking up more of the hype for Star Trek.
Sure. Whatever you guys said.
The Punisher on Netflix. So this is one of 3 Marvel Netflix shows that started this year. I did, out of mere curiosity, watch the first episode when it came out, and it just didn't capture me. So Bat Noogie.
Yeah, I'll give it a Thin Station Bat Cookie. Punisher's a great character. I love him.
Did you watch the show?
I did not.
Oh, you don't love the character that much.
I love a lot of characters. I don't have that much time.
That's fair.
And there's a lot of anime
You
in
don't
the
have
world.
enough room in your heart for all those characters?
No.
No. Well, I don't have any room in my heart for the Punisher. Never seen it, so Bat Noogie.
The Netflix version of A Series of Unfortunate Events.
Still haven't seen it, but I mean to. Because, I mean, I like Neil Patrick Harris, and I heard that it was a better adaptation of the book. So, books? Plural?
Yes, books,
Yes.
yeah.
Okay. So, it is actually on my list of things I do want to watch. So, for that, and it's one of 3 on this list that is, so I'll give it a Bat Cookie for that.
I read the books as a kid, and I loved them. Watching it now, I don't really enjoy it. So Bat Noogie.
Asian John was really into this show, and I wanted things to go well for the characters, and in the spirit of the books, it's just like one bad thing after kept happening. And I'm like, there's just too much melancholy here for me to actually, I just want good things. Like, it's like it's one thing to go through something hard, but then have some kind of resolution, and then it just kept getting worse and worse. And so I just kind of fell off. I was like, I don't care if Patrick Warburton's there as the narrator telling us things. It still got to me. So I'm going to give it a 2-knuckle Bat Noogie. Glow. It's a show about 80s female wrestling. I've seen a couple episodes. It seems pretty funny. I'll give it a Thin Station Bat Cookie.
I never heard of it, so I'm going to give it a slight Bat Noogie.
Bat Noogie, never heard of it. Well, I have. It's showed up on Netflix as like a recommended thing, but
Literally,
it always
you
looked
talking
weird.
about it now was the first time I heard about it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It just looked weird.
Runaways. This is a Marvel show that aired on Hulu and again got actual airtime on TV in Canada. It's about a bunch of... It's a less interesting version of the comic book it's based on, because the comic book, these are like the children of supervillains, and kind of one night they discover all their parents are gathered at like the supervillain meeting, and they're like, oh my gosh, all our parents are villains. Like we got to like run away from here. And so it's about this group of people with teenagers with superpowers on the run from their parents who are supervillains. And from my understanding, the comics, they're kind of children of like brand name Marvel villains that people would actually recognize, but here they kind of turn into more generic supervillains so that they would have to be as attached to the larger intellectual properties of Marvel.
I feel like the opposite would be a better concept. A bunch of kids who realize their parents are superheroes, like, oh my gosh, we're going to die because people are going to target us.
Yeah, it sounds like an interesting idea, but I just never got into it, so Bat Noogie.
Yeah, I'll say Bat Noogie as well.
Bat Noogie.
Iron Fist. Now this show I don't know why I sat and watched the whole first season. I think I only watched this show because I knew it was going to play into The Defenders, which we'll talk about in a moment. But Iron Fist was just such a disappointment. Yeah.
It sounded like it was going to be like a cool martial arts thing, but then Into the Badland happened, and then I didn't watch that. And I watched Into the Badlands instead.
It's a ridiculous show.
Is Iron Fist the one with the guy with like curly blonde hair?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I watched some of that because someone in my house was, and The guy just seemed pathetic and annoying, the main character. So Bat Noogie.
Yeah. And then we have the Defenders. So this was meant to be the Marvel Netflix version of the Avengers, bringing all of their characters.
That's the one with like Iron Fist, Jessica Jones, Black Lightning.
No, not Black Lightning's DC.
Oh, okay.
This was Daredevil, Luke Cage, Jessica Jones.
Okay,
and
yeah,
Iron
but
Fist.
I heard about it. It didn't look, but I didn't follow any of those shows. So I was like, yeah, I'm not gonna.
It was
get into it.
underwhelming, and that was its biggest crime. Is that it should have been better than it was. And
Sounds like a Bat Noogie to me.
yes, Bat Noogie.
Bat Noogie.
The Gifted. Did you guys hear about this show?
Nah.
This was another Marvel Comics show
Oh yes, I have then.
that aired
Marvel needs to stop. Am I right?
Well, this was still in the time when like these different houses, because this was like aired on Fox. So this was a show about mutants, and it was totally like, even from the X-Men movies, it was kind of dissociated because it didn't really mention any of the named characters. But it was just Fox's attempt to keep making movies and shows that are the properties they had access to. I never got into it. Bat Noogie.
Bat Noogie.
Bat Noogie.
The new version of DuckTales started in 2017. I've enjoyed every episode I have seen. It's great. Big old Bat Cookie.
Likewise, Bat Cookie, and I mean
David Tennant.
David Tennant. Look, David Tennant is a great Scrooge McDuck, and he actually gets to speak in his natural accent. I mean, a little strong, but it is great.
Bat Noogie. Didn't enjoy
What
I saw.
The theme song is perfect. Anyway.
DuckTales.
Woo! Tangled, the series, started in 2017.
Why?
It's amazing. It's actually really good. It's got nice, pretty animation. All the cast in the movie's there. It fills in.
Tangled was a good movie, I will say.
Yeah, this is a sequel to the movie, but then a prequel to the short film that shows their wedding.
Was Tangled like kind of like a Frozen movie? Kind of in the same genre?
It came out before Frozen. It was a objectively better film, but didn't have as good music, so it wasn't nearly as popular as Frozen.
Objectively better.
Yes.
Yeah, most people
okay.
would say that.
I'm not gonna. Well, I haven't seen Frozen either. Thank God. So.
Big old Bat Cookie for Tangled.
I'll give it a Thin Station Bat Cookie then, because Tangled was a great movie and the characters were pretty good.
Sure, Bat Cookie.
And then the Amazon version of The Tick started airing in 2017. I have seen about 3 or 4 episodes of this. What is interesting about this is that Amazon had like this contest where like 4 different TV shows had a pilot made, and they put all the pilots on Amazon Prime, and they said, okay, whatever pilot you guys like the most, we'll actually green light for a show. And The Tick actually won that contest, so it got more episodes. It got like 2 seasons actually. So
it's on my list of shows to watch, so I'm giving it a Bat Cookie, and now that I actually have Amazon Prime, I might get around to that.
Okay, Bat Cookie.
There we go. There were surprisingly very few shows of note that ended in 2017. We have, first of all, Criminal Minds Beyond Borders, which again was meant to be like the cyber version.
Oh, right. We talked about that. Didn't that not start last year?
That was CSI Cyber.
Oh, okay.
This is Criminal Minds Beyond Borders, and it was meant to be a spin-off of Criminal Minds. The only thing that is a note of this is that one of the characters who was introduced on this show was actually brought over to the main Criminal Minds after the show was canceled.
Bat Noogie, it got canceled. Probably deserved it.
Yeah, Bat Noogie for
Bat
me.
Noogie.
Marvel's Inhumans infamously began and ended in 2017.
Oh, thank God.
It started with
It's a good comic series, though.
I know, but the show was just terrible. Like
Yeah.
they released the pilot in theaters and IMAX theaters, and the show didn't even last the season. Like it actually was canceled, and it didn't even air all its episodes.
Oof.
So it's big old Bat Noogie for me. And then sadly, this last show, Powerless, was a show I was really excited about. It was going to be a DC Comics comedy about an insurance company that is in the DC Comics universe. So they deal with all the insurance claims that come in because of all the superhero fights. But then I guess it tested poorly, so they changed the concept to being a company that sells personal protection equipment to basically so people could defend themselves from supervillains.
Oh, that doesn't sound as good.
It wasn't.
The other one sounded a lot better.
Alan Tudyk was like the evil boss in the show.
Oh, man.
Danny Pudi and Vanessa Hudgens were like some of the main characters. It sounded like a great idea, but unfortunately it didn't last. It didn't even last its whole season.
Oh, well, unfortunate.
So that's a Bat Noogie?
Bat Noogie
Yeah,
for it failing, but also for them changing from what sounded like a great concept.
Moving on now to anime from 2017. I was very disappointed to find out that My Anime List, the source we've been using for weeks now, is they for whatever reason stopped doing compilations of the best rated anime in 2017. So I had to go to a article on fandom for the best anime of the year. So this is admittedly more subjective than for the last several weeks we've been going off of a whole compilation of different users. I think this is just one person's preferences. So going through these quickly. 10 New Game Season 2.
I don't know what New Game is.
It's about a company that makes video games, and all the characters are female. It's one of those.
Okay, then Bat Noogie.
I have a feeling every single thing on this anime list will be a Bat Noogie.
Oh, no,
me.
there's a few good ones.
Oh, okay. Well, for me.
Oh,
anyways.
okay, yeah, fair enough.
I've never heard of that. Weird name, weird premise, Bat Noogie.
Number 9, Suridure Children. I love this show. It is basically about teenage romance, and it's all like short, like 5-minute segments. So they basically showcase all the different idiosyncrasies of like different relationships. So it's this big ensemble cast, and then like segments focusing on like different characters. Like, for example, there's like one couple where like, the guy and the girl like each other, but the guy has a younger sister who's like, jealous of the fact that someone likes her brother and doesn't want anyone to get close to her brother. So she's like trying to like. Anyway, it's really fun and cute, and like it recalls to you like all those like weird feelings you had as a teenager about, how do I tell this girl or boy that I like her?
I'm not into it. Bat Noogie.
Yeah, Bat Noogie. That doesn't sound like something I would enjoy.
Sounds whack.
Number 8, The Saga of Tanya the Evil. This is
that the one with the tiny blonde girl.
Yes. So this is a show where a middle-aged man dies and is reincarnated as this little.
Nazi, right?
Like a kind of like Nazi girl in this world where World War II there's magic.
Yeah.
And she's like basically like a tyrant. So she has superpowers. She's evil. She has the brain of an adult, even though she's a child, and she has like a platoon of people that fight for her.
Yeah, it was. It reminded me of Drifters.
I saw one episode and wasn't for me, so
I liked it.
I'll
give it not like a huge, like a full on, but like a sensation back cookie. It was good. It was like good trash.
That's the best trash.
Yeah.
You probably haven't seen this one, have you?
Oh, I've never even heard of it. So Bat Noogie.
Okay. Number 7, Recovery of an MMO Junkie.
Yeah, Bat Noogie.
This is another show I love because it's about this female recluse who is so like she has social anxiety. She doesn't deal well with being around people. And what do you mean no?
No, I was going to say, Welcome to NHK exists, right?
Yes, but this is like reverse of that. And it's beautiful because like she makes friends in the game, and then she starts pursuing a man romantically in the real world, and then you find out that they actually know each other in the game. I just love those kind of stories.
I don't like slice of life, so I'm gonna go give it a Bat Noogie.
Oh, it's so cute. I'm giving it Bat Cookie.
Bat Noogie.
Also, Welcome to the NHK exists, and I feel like a lot of shows try to do what it does, but do it poorly. Because I do actually really enjoy that show. I think it delved into real themes and strong emotions, which seldom get replicated well.
Number 6, this is kind of controversial, but they included Castlevania, the Netflix Castlevania, on their list of anime.
Not only controversial because it's part of Netflix, but because it was kind of a bad show.
Well, also it's like it was an American-made product that just was made to look like anime. So it's kind of like it falls into that weird, well, if it's trying to be anime, should it just be called anime or not? For me, it's like, no, it's not anime, but it's on this list. It is a new show this year. I haven't watched it.
I've heard mostly bad things about it, and I think I watched one episode. I was like, Like, it has, Bat Noogie. It has potential, but it's not really actualizing it.
Bat Noogie. Just trying to stay consistent here.
Number 5, Inuyashiki Last Hero. I've seen promotions for this. From what I understand, it's about a very old man who switches his brain into a young man's body.
No, it's about a very old man who happens to be a cyborg.
Oh.
And a very young man who's also a cyborg, and they're basically fighting. The young man looks like a perfect person, but he's actually super evil and wants to destroy all people. The old man is like begrudgingly the only person who can stop him. It's if that tells you anything, it's the creator of Gantz.
I've heard of that.
Okay, it is not for everybody. It has, like Gantz, a very grim and depressing outlook on humanity, and it kind of like explores the you know, the what if somebody is given power over other people, what would they do with it, and would a good person with the same power be able to stop an evil person with those powers? And the answer is kind of no-ish. It was really, like, if you can handle the amount of, like, kind of grimdark it is, it's a very good show. I liked it personally, but I can understand a lot of people disliking it. So I'll give it a Thin Station Bat Cookie. I thought it was enjoyable, but it definitely is very depressive, so a lot of people would not like it.
Yeah, based on that, I think I'll have to give it a two-finger Bat Noogie.
Bat Noogie for me.
It's the whole Bat Noogie.
It's a cool concept, though.
Full on Bat Noogie.
Number 4, The Ancient Magus Bride. I have watched this show. It has a very slow pace. I know it's supposed to be a romance show, but like the main female character and like the main male character is this weird like magician guy who has like this giant like skull, like a cow skull as a head, and he's got horns. It kind of reminds you a bit of Beauty and the Beast, and there is a bit of like, it is kind of weird because like the way she comes into living at his home, it does feel a bit Stockholm syndrome-y, and you're like,
like Beauty and the Beast,
kind of like Beauty and the Beast. So, and I had a hard time sitting through because it does have such a slow pace. It's like, man, this is gonna put me to sleep.
Yeah, Bat Noogie for that.
yeah.
Honestly,
There's a talking dog in it, which is kind of fun, but
Bat Noogie.
Thin Station. I'll give it a Thin Station Bat Cookie. Why not?
Okay.
Number 3, My Hero Academia Season 2.
Well, I'm gonna give it a Bat Cookie this time. I don't know what I did last time, but Season 2 had Stain in it.
And a tournament arc.
Yeah, who cares about the tournament arc? Stain is the single most interesting character in that entire series. He revived the series, made it actually have real themes instead of being dumb, and it's been better since. So I'm going to give it a Bat Cookie for that.
I'll always give My Hero Academia a Bat Cookie.
Of course you would.
You know what this is, right, Minty Python?
I've heard you
High School of
and
Heroes.
another coworker of mine. Oh, I don't know if the audience knows we're coworkers, but
Spoilers.
I think we've mentioned that before. But another coworker have talked about it, so I know about it through that. But Bat Noogie.
What?
I just can't. I'm not an anime fan. I can't give anime bat
Sure
cookies.
you can.
I just can't.
Find the right one for you.
Okay.
We'll find the right one for you eventually.
I know one's about gun smugglers and stuff. That'd be
There
right
you
up your
go.
alley.
Black Lagoon.
Or Jormungand.
Mm.
All right, so number 2 is Ora Monogatari. It's more of this Monogatari series that's popped up in our list a couple times. This is where it ended, though. So I'm like, okay, I can stop talking about this.
So you're going to give it a Bat Cookie because it ended?
No, I'm still giving it a Bat Noogie because there's so many things about that show I don't
I'll
like.
give it a Bat Cookie because it ended.
I'll give it a Bat Noogie for the long name. Sounds
Fair
like
enough.
Good reason.
And number 1 is Made in Abyss, which is a show I have heard a lot about because it was so popular and it was the show everyone was talking about. I can't even really do a good description of it because it's kind of it's just hard to describe simply. Well, then, if you can, Beef Pork Ribs, go ahead. I'm not going to stop you.
It's a cute story about a girl and her cyborg friend who go down a giant hole.
Okay, I guess
That gets steadily more dangerous the further down you go.
right.
It's
Yeah,
a simple enough
okay,
concept.
fine, yeah.
What to explain what makes it good around like the relationship between the two main characters and kind of like the themes of like isolation and how beautiful it is. Like, yeah, you'd have to go in more details, but the basic concept is pretty simple. There's a cyborg boy and his friend who's a girl who are not romantically involved and who are going through an adventure. Ish.
I have yet. It's on my list of things to watch because it is like people don't stop talking about it.
It is quite good.
You've
I would
seen it?
recommend it. I have seen most of the first season.
Okay.
Like, it is... There's a reason people were talking about it. It does go, like... It's heartwarming at the right times, but also has, like, very serious undertones. It does remind me of things like Gravity Falls that are, like, funny. Well, that one isn't necessarily funny, but it's cute, but it also has deeper meanings to it and deeper layers to it, definitely. Soundtrack is gorgeous, and the show looks gorgeous, and it also is just a good series. So, Bat Cookie from me.
Fair enough. I guess I give it a Bat Cookie.
Bat Noogie.
Oh, come on.
You should really watch that one, though, before and redo your...
I'll come
if
back
any-
on the show
honestly,
just to change
If
my
any
mind.
on this list, I would recommend that one.
Oh, okay.
Inuyashiki you might enjoy. you have the right. I think you may have the right disposition for it.
Some other noteworthy anime of the year, we have the second season of Attack on Titan, which is mostly noteworthy just because it took so long for the sequel to come out.
Yep.
Took, like, just to give you perspective, Minty Python, if an anime is really popular and as popular as Attack on Titan was, usually it's at the most a year, maybe 2 years before it gets a second season. Attack on Titan, it took 4 years for the studio to put out a second season.
It was, yeah. Which is really sad because, like, it killed a lot of the hype that was going on, which I thought it was overhyped, but then the second season was underhyped because nobody was talking about it anymore. It's kind of unfortunate.
Yeah.
Like, Bat Nogi, because it took 4 years, Bat Cookie for season 2, starting where the story was actually getting interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, for the same reason I give it a Bat Noogie.
Bat Noogie.
Oh, come on, you're killing me here. All right, Recreators. This is a show I will sing the praises of forever. It came out in 2017. I think it's a really great show. Everyone should watch it.
Is that the one with the neighbors?
No, this is a world where this is basically a show where essentially a bunch of manga and anime characters come into the real world, and they have to deal with the reality that they are characters of fiction. So all the stories and the lives they've led, they find out are basically only there for the entertainment of others.
Oh.
And there's a lot of interesting existential questions that they ask themselves. And, like, for example, there's a magical girl like Sailor Moon who has all these superpowers, but in her world, no one ever bleeds, and there's never any collateral damage because it's a show for kids. But then she comes in the real world and she uses her powers, and buildings are exploding and people are bleeding. And she's like, what is going on? Like, this has never happened before.
There is a show entirely about that, though. Like, specifically the darker side of magical girls.
But my point is that it covers a wide variety of different tropes. Like, there's a classic show in anime is like a young boy pilots a giant robot, and then he comes to the real world and he realizes that, like, I was forced basically being a child soldier for the sake of someone's entertainment. Again,
Evangelion. Like, I don't know. At first you made it sound interesting, but now you just described two things that literally have a show entirely dedicated to that. So I'm changing from a sensation Bat Cookie to a Bat Noogie here.
No, but sure, if you're super invested in the anime community, each specific genre has been deconstructed at some point. But this is like a good way for people who don't have any experience with anime to kind of come in and see a deconstruction of all this stuff.
I'll break the tie, Bat Noogie.
I also feel, though, that deconstruction of any genre only really works if you've been involved in it. Like, nobody wants to watch a deconstruction of something they don't understand what is being deconstructed because it's kind of pointless.
You know what? I'm still giving it Bat Cookie.
Fair enough.
Recommend everyone watches Recreators.
All right.
Land of the Lustrous. All I know about it is that it was completely done in CG and it looks pretty. It's well animated.
I'll say a Bat Noogie then.
Bat Noogie.
If the only good thing about an anime is that it looks good, it's usually terrible.
We'll talk about that in a moment. Boruto, Naruto Next Generations, the official sequel to Naruto.
The amount of Bat Noogies this show deserves is unending.
Bat Noogie.
So bad.
I'm relentless.
It is
in the
so
distribution
bad.
of Bat Noogies today.
Yeah, but this one is like
okay, double, triple.
Yeah, no, seriously.
Quadruple Bat Noogie from me.
We'll have to have an episode about Boruto at some point where I can bash it properly, but it's terrible.
Black Clover. My brother King Boo loves this show. When it started airing in Japanese, it was famous because the main character screamed a lot, and the voice actor did this really annoyingly high-pitched scream that was memed to death. It's awful. That is awful. The show itself is fine. I just haven't had time to watch it.
Black Clover fluctuates a lot in quality. The manga kind of suffered from that a little bit, but definitely the manga is way better than the anime for a number of reasons, pacing being a big one, but also framing and inking is really good, and it doesn't translate well to the animation style they chose to use. I'll give the anime a Bat Noogie, but Black Clover was pretty decent, especially as a follow-up to Fairy Tail, which was really big and was kind of a fantasy thing, and this was taking over the fantasy thing a little bit better, but it also felt like it was kind of ripping off Magi, which I didn't like.
Bat Noogie.
Handshakers.
Bat Noogie.
Yeah, I saw
it's handshaking. We're not allowed to do it.
I saw one episode. It was terrible. Moving on. Kimono Friends. This is some weird thing where all the animals of the jungle are girls. It's really
Bat
dumb.
Noogie.
Dumb Bat Noogie.
Bat Noogie.
So many weird like premise is in anime.
Do you even anime? Yeah,
No,
but that's
I've never
But
watched.
there are some.
I've never sat down and watched.
It's
an
one of the
anime.
problem with like giving people a synopsis or a quick thing about, because often they are so ridiculous, but sometimes they turn out to be good shows, like Made in Abyss. But you give the people the basic premise of like, what? And you're like,
Yeah.
okay, trust me, you're gonna have to watch it. Like,
You have to go.
a
into it
high school
blind.
student receives a notebook in which he can write the name of people and then they die, and he starts trying to get rid of the world of ridding the world of criminal. It sounds stupid, but Death Note is one of the best shows ever made.
Steins Gate Zero aired this year. This was a pseudo sequel to Steins Gate.
I never watched Zero.
It's interesting because it kind of it shows you essentially like an alternate timeline of like what could happen if the show ended at a certain point.
Oh. Okay, fine. Then Station Bat Cookie
I'll
sounds
give
like
it a
could be
full
interesting.
cookie.
Bat Noogie.
ah,
Bro, I've never seen any of these.
well, you can, based on the descriptions, you can maybe not just give everything a noogie.
Well, no, if we are not doing a good enough job at making him want to watch these, then
Fine. All right, Fuka. I just wanted to mention this show because it is a sequel to another show called Suzuka. I read the manga for Fuka before the anime version came out, and very disappointed when the anime did come out because it totally it deviates totally from the plot of the manga.
Oh, yeah.
Something very major that impacts the rest of the manga's story happens that it doesn't happen in the anime.
I've heard about this as being like one of the biggest flops like an anime adaptation ever did. They're like, this makes no sense. Why did they do this?
Yeah, so
Yeah, Bat Noogie.
Bat Noogie for the anime, Bat Cookie for the manga. And then there weren't many movies this year, but Sword Art Online had its Pokemon Go movie, basically, where they had augmented reality. I didn't care for it.
I give a Bat Noogie to all SAO except SAO abridged. Just as
Sword
a
Art
general
Online,
rule.
you familiar with this?
Never heard of it.
Okay.
Bat Noogie.
There's a Pokemon anniversary film called Pokemon I Choose
Bat
You.
Noogie, just based off that.
All I know is that they took Misty and Brock out of like the original story, and there was like a line where Pikachu speaks like words, not just its name, and
Oh, Bat Noogie.
it freaked people out.
There's only a few good Pokemon movies. We actually talked about this when we watched Detective Pikachu. It's like, this is probably one of the best Pokemon movies, but that's not saying much.
Yeah. And then Mary and the Witch's Flower, which is a movie I heard the name of and saw the poster for, but didn't know anything else about it.
Bat Noogie, I have no idea what it was.
Bat Noogie.
Okay, here we go.
I made it through
Oh.
all the animes.
All right.
And now, talking about movies that were released in 2017. Here are the top 5 movies from WatchMojo.com. No, sorry, not WatchMojo.com. Box
The box
Office
office.
Mojo. So much mojo in the movie business. Box
Yeah,
office,
baby.
BoxOfficeMojo.com. Number 5, Spider-Man: Homecoming.
Oh, it was a good movie.
Was that the one with
was-
Jake Gyllenhaal?
No,
No, this was the one with
Michael Keaton.
Michael Keaton.
I
Michael Keaton is Batman.
yeah, I know that.
Okay.
He was
Uh,
a Batman. He's not.
He was the
This
best
was
Batman
so
on the
this
movie.
was the first Spider-Man
But-
movie in the MCU.
I can't remember if I've seen it or not. I think I may have.
Well, you should. It's good.
Yeah,
And,
I like the
and
one.
Michael Keaton was amazing in it.
Okay.
He stole the show. Like, I honestly think he stole the show. I remember I watched this. So I watched this because I was gonna go see Far From Home in theaters, and I still hadn't seen Homecoming yet.
Oh man.
And yeah, Mjolnir was very, very firm that I would have to watch it first, and I watched it, and then she got really upset because she was like, how great was Tom Holland? I'm like, how great was the Vulture? He stole the show and everything, and I started ranting and raving about it. She's like, oh, I didn't think he was that good. I'm like, no, you don't understand.
What I really appreciate about Homecoming is how they really integrated this Spider-Man story into the MCU. Like
That's true.
all the little world-building pieces and the Easter eggs. It really felt like it was a movie set in the MCU. So and Tom Holland's amazing as Spider-Man. So.
Yeah, Tom Holland, like, credit where credit is due. Tom Holland is a great Spider-Man, but like,
Bat Cookie for me.
yeah, huge Bat Cookie, but like, his
I'll give
eyes,
it
it's
a
good.
Bat Cookie because I enjoyed the one after it, so I'm assuming I'd enjoy that one too.
I'd argue this one is better, but most
Okay.
people disagree with me.
Oh,
Number 4, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2.
I saw that movie. I saw that movie in theaters 3 times, mostly because other people wanted to see it with me. But I don't regret it. I liked it
don't
better than the
enjoy
first
it
one.
as much.
I can't remember what the premise is. What
Ego.
happens?
Kurt Russell's in it.
Kurt Russell is being Quill's dad, and he's like, "Come with me to this planet, and we'll be people together." I don't know.
I remember watching it. I don't remember what happened in it. I remember enjoying it.
It is partially because like, and this is something
It is kind of forgettable.
Well, yes and no, and this again.
Clearly on my part.
I've talked to Mjolnir about this one a lot because we talk about movies a lot, and she prefers it as well because it is more character-centric rather than plot-centric. Like the first one had a very clear plot about things that need to be done, whereas this one was a lot more about the relationship between the characters.
Oh, Groot's a baby in this one. That's
Oh.
Did that help?
Sure.
I remember that's a little factoid about the movie. I remember now.
Also, it has like one of the best uses of songs, like The Chain, the way it was used and when it was used. Fleetwood Mac song, amazing.
Yeah.
Like
I do like that
I love
song.
that.
My big disappointment with Guardians 2, there are specific moments that come to mind where they undercut something that should be dramatic and full of tension with a joke. And it took me out of the movie. I'm like, that joke did not need to be there. Now,
True.
but that's my big...
But I'll also say
isn't that what Marvel does?
Yeah, well,
Not-
they
not
kind of
all
leaned more heavily into it in this one.
Yeah.
But on the flip side of that moment between Mantis and Drax, I think is one of the most understated scenes of the entire MCU. When he's just like, he is like being Drax and being like joking, and then he just sighs and Mantis touches his arm and like reads his emotion, and she immediately almost starts crying. And you're like, despite all, like, I think it was really good insight into his character. Like, despite the fact that he is the silly comic relief guy, like, he has such a depth of emotion to him. And, like, we knew his backstory from the first movie, but, like, it was a little more ridiculed in the first movie. And now it's like, oh, shit. Like, oh, snap. He really cares about them, and it is affecting him deeply.
Well, I'm still going to give it I'll give it a Thin Station Bat Cookie.
Bat Cookie.
I'll give it a Bat Cookie.
Number 3, Wonder Woman. You've spoken how you don't like this movie.
I don't like this movie. I mean, it was a better movie than the other DC movies, which kudos for that. Not a high bar to set, but there are a number of things I didn't like about this movie. Most of them have to do with this, like, okay, but how did Diana deal with other historical events that happened after World War I if she was this, like, disillusioned about men being evil and not being manipulated by Eris? I'm like, look, things that happened in World War II are much worse than things that happened in World War I, and yet World War I was almost enough to, like, make her give up on humanity. So I would, like, if she lived through other things, if she lived through the Cold War and some of the conflicts that happened there, like, how could she possibly reconcile that with not going back to her island? But also, there were a few things about the way the final villain was handled. He was terrible. It wasn't handled well. And also just historical accuracy things that I'm like, no, this was bad.
But it's a superhero movie.
What is that supposed to mean?
Why does historical accuracy matter?
Because it does matter. If you're going to put a film as a period piece...
Because the film was a period piece.
It's supposed to be?
Yeah,
okay.
It is supposed to be like a World War I period piece,
Okay.
which made the historical inaccuracies worse.
I did see the film. I thought the bad guy was weird. Like, I don't remember specifics, but I remember that.
The
final
he was a
scene being
DC
weird.
villain.
Okay.
Yeah, but I did overall, I think, enjoy it. Like, it was definitely not the worst movie I've ever seen in theaters. The worst movie I've seen in theaters is actually, I think, in this episode somewhere.
So anyway, I like Wonder Woman. I can understand like the issues you have with it. It's kind of more so like how the movie ends, which is fair. The ending is the weakest part, but I still.
The third act is complete trash altogether.
I listen. I enjoy.
But
the
is it
movie.
good trash?
No.
I'm giving it a Bat Cookie.
I give it a bat noogie. Like, it was it was.
Can at least get a thin, like a 2-finger.
Yeah,
Bat
it's a 2-finger bat noogie. Like, it was a step up from other DC movies, but it wasn't enough. Aquaman was.
I'll give it a Bat Cookie.
Number 2, Beauty and the Beast,
And thus started the unnecessary live-action remakes.
Amen.
I mean, the Jungle Book wasn't completely unnecessary. This one was. There's nothing. The overcorrection they're trying to make on the original one, the like ham-fisted attempts at being better. The fact that the Beast just did not work. He had no chemistry with Belle. Like, there were so many problems with this movie.
And yet it did incredibly well. It made a ton of money. Like, a lot of people went and saw it multiple times, clearly.
Yeah, I know, but, it's a Disney nostalgia thing. But it was just a bad movie.
Yeah, I mean, when I went and saw it, I didn't think it was bad, but just the way that some of the way that some of the characters were visualized, like the clock and the candlestick, they just didn't have as much emotion because when you try and actually put that face on a clock, it doesn't work nearly as well. The music definitely wasn't as good.
It felt like a worse movie. And if you're not going to remake a movie, either it's because you think you can do it better or you think you can do it differently in a good way. It did neither one.
Well, or you just want to make more money.
Well, no, there are things this movie does better. Like Gaston's character is much more nuanced here, and you actually get sense of like why he is the way he is,
which is completely unnecessary.
No, I enjoyed actually having more complex characters in my Disney movies. Thank you very much. And they do provide some explanation, like to things that are just assuming like plot holes in the original film. Like,
yes, but they do it in such a way that it doesn't that it makes it worse.
All right, I'm not going to spend all my time defending this movie.
I don't know. I did not enjoy it, and we can talk about the Gaston thing, but the problem I had with it is that there is something very true about the idea that the one handsome, strong guy could influence a small community that was very downplayed in this movie by trying to make it more justifiable. Him being a deeper character makes his influence on the village not make sense, and therefore makes his character weaker and less believable, even though he's a more human character. That's my issue with it.
Bat Noogie.
Bat Noogie.
Never saw it.
Oh, you know what? I don't know why I'm defending this thing so much.
You're also giving it a Bat Noogie.
I'm giving it a 2-finger Bat Noogie.
All right, fair enough.
And the top grossing film for 2017 is Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi.
Gross.
Which ended up being an incorrect title anyway by the time the next film came out, but that's besides the point. This is like the most polarizing Star Wars film I've ever heard of. This is the exact reason Minty Pylon wanted to be on this episode. So I'll give you first crack at this.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just preface this by saying that I'm pretty ignorant on this stuff. I'm not really a Star Wars fan. I'm not really bought into the whole universe, and some of what I say might be ill-informed, but I just found it to be such a boring and uncompelling movie that it actually like made me like the prequels. Like when I sit down and watch the prequels, like they're terrible, but they're fun to watch in a way. This movie is just so bland, and I made notes because I watched it.
You tried rewatching it yesterday.
Yeah,
right?
I guess I just got to say, boring. I struggled. I only made it halfway through, partially because I was interrupted, but
boring and pointless.
Yeah, also pointless. I'm trying to think of some of the things that I really, like Luke's character is pathetic and annoying. Rose's character is pathetic and annoying. I don't understand.
And useless.
And useless. I don't understand the point of like bombs in a laser world where they shoot lasers. Why are there bombs?
I mean, that specific type of bomb too.
Why is he drinking milk?
Why are there not nukes? Oh yeah, but
like that was gross.
Why
is Kylo Ren so pathetic?
I think.
And who is Snoke?
But Snoke.
Snoke.
Who's
Snoke?
I think that I will say this now before we get more into it. I still think that Rise of Skywalker is a worse movie.
I haven't seen Rise of Skywalker, just so you know.
Or at least a worse Star Wars movie at the very least. I remember my biggest problem with this movie is that I remember distinctly being in theaters watching it and being like, they're going to do something smart with this movie. And then they didn't. I thought, especially because if you go into, and this is more as a Star Wars fan, like the idea and the lore of like the Sith versus the Jedi and like the light side of the Force versus the dark side. One is like trying to control your emotions and trying to handle things better, which is what the Jedi stood for. and the other one is like letting go of your emotion. And in a weird way, in the beginning of the movie, by having killed his mother, at least he thought so, Kylo Ren was ridding himself of attachments in an unhealthy way, but in a way that could lead him to kind of like let go of his anger, let go of his hate, and to become more Jedi-like. And Rey was doing the opposite and getting upset and angry and trying to like kill people, which is exactly what Anakin did, and he went to the dark side immediately. I mean, Palpatine was there to help things, and the fact that Palpatine has no influence in these two movies and then comes back was ridiculous. But anyway, I thought that Rey was going to end with Snoke and that he would be a relevant character in the last movie, and that Kylo Ren would become the Jedi. And while I thought that was happening, I was okay with putting up with some of the worse parts of it, because the Kylo Ren, because up until Kylo kills Snoke, the Kylo Ren and Rey part of the story wasn't half bad. And then after that, it just became pointless. Everything else that happened in the movie was bad and didn't make any sense and was pointless. And the entire thing in the casino did not have to exist in the movie and had no influence on the movie whatsoever. But how Finn faced off against his rival, and then it was killed by BB-8, or it was so bad.
I must say, beef pork ribs is providing a much better and deeper analysis than I did. Well, most of the reasons I dislike it are very surface level.
Well, see, then the thing, I don't think I can say I hate the movie, because there are things that it did differently from other Star Wars movies that I enjoyed.
Oh, and the choreography in that fight scene with the red guys is very bad.
But
Joe, let it go. It's bad.
It's average Joe.
Average Joe. Just let it go. This is a very below average film.
No,
the only one that's worse is Solo.
This film was noteworthy because because not everyone hated it. There were a lot of people who actually really liked this movie and liked what it had to say. So the fact that it appealed to a group of people who were clearly not you guys, it just shows that it had a different audience, and they introduced a lot of different things and things that were deviations from what was before. And a lot of the Star Wars fans, like yourselves, did not like that. What I didn't like about it is how it took all the mysteries that were introduced in Episode 7 and then basically said, it doesn't matter, and then just moving on to the new story.
And then change it all. But I think also there are obvious reasons why this didn't work and that people should have seen coming. In hindsight, it was they changed the director and changed the vision completely. They didn't have unified plans for the three movies. It also makes the trilogy as a whole way worse than the other ones.
They always intended to have different
Minty Python
for each
yes,
movie.
But
I guess they just
should have been there still should have been a through vision. There was no shared vision whatsoever between these two movies.
There was originally, but Rian Johnson got too much, creative control and changed things for 8, because there was a plan, because we know what was supposed to happen with certain characters in 9.
Yeah, because they decided to come back to it in the next movie, but then it still makes even less sense.
Anyway,
yeah,
for me, The Last Jedi, two-finger bat noogie. I don't think it's the worst, but I also don't want to give it a
huge
cookie.
bat noogie, but I also do think that Episode 8 was worse.
Yeah.
Episode 9 was worse.
Big old bat noogie for me.
All right, talking about other films that came out in 2017. A lot of controversy this year. It, the remake of It.
That never was a fan of horror genre. Mjolnir really likes it, so she'll get mad at me if I don't give it a sensation bat cookie. It seemed like it was a good remake, though. Because, the miniseries was very campy that came out in the 80s. Yeah, exactly. And it did kind of revive, horror that isn't, gore-fest. So I'll say a sensation bat cookie for it being kind of a return to things that aren't terrible.
Bat noogie. I don't like horror.
Yeah, as a rule, I don't like horror. It's just not enjoyable to me. So, bat noogie.
Thor Ragnarok.
Bat cookie.
Speaking of reviving
Taika
things.
Waititi is great.
Yeah, I liked Thor Ragnarok. It was a little
too...
The
movie went well.
It felt like in the comic book sense, it did feel like a reboot. They were really trying to take the story in a different direction for Thor, which was obviously needed after Thor 2, but it was still a little...
I still haven't seen that one.
Yeah, you don't need to. It did feel a little too jokey for me, so I'll only give it a thin station Bat Cookie.
I'll give it a Bat Cookie fully because I think it was like a setup that was needed to revive his character, for it to be a little more lighthearted. And I mean, it's also what happens when you put like a guy who's done mostly comedy as the director, like basically exclusively comedy. But I still think it had enough justification in the character development to make it work, and it was a good way to link Thor back into the MCU when he was kind of in a bad place after Thor 2.
I'll give it a Bat Cookie. I don't really remember what happens, but I remember liking the Thor movies. So
Also, I want more movies like this where there's like two characters teaming up, like the fact the Hulk was in this one.
Yeah.
That was a good choice. I don't need every movie to be an Avengers movie, but having them on their own at this point just seems silly. So let's have more movies like this. Despicable Me 3, didn't see it.
Bat Noogie. Minions.
I did not see it. Bat Noogie.
Logan.
Oh, yeah, that was good.
Beautiful
Bat Cookie.
movie.
It ended the.
This is where the X-Men movie should have stopped.
This is where the X-Men movie should have stopped, and it's Hugh Jackman's last stand as Logan as well, and as well as Patrick Stewart as Professor X.
Yeah, Bat Cookie.
That one less emotional because I do feel like there was a torch passing that went to
James
James McAvoy, and it was pretty decent. But like Logan, and it hit the right beats as a movie too. Like it was great.
And you haven't seen this, Minty Python.
I haven't, but I am going to give it a Bat Cookie because I think I'd like it from what I've
Oh
heard.
yeah, it was great.
The Fate of the Furious. Now, this one's infamous because Vin Diesel and The Rock had like a feud off screen, so like apparently they weren't willing to work with each other at all. So like any scene where the two characters are in the movie together, they're like either digitally put there or stand-ins are involved. And the plot's kind of written around Vin Diesel betraying the family, so everyone's against The Rock or against Vin Diesel. I still enjoy it. It's funny. Cars jumping out of planes and submarines, and I still give it a Bat Cookie.
I'm giving this a Bat Noogie like every other Fast Furious movie so far.
I haven't seen this Furious movie, but I'll give it a Bat Cookie because they're so stupid they're good.
Number 11th grossing movie, Justice League.
Did not see.
Don't want to. Bat Noogie.
There's a long, complicated story with the making of this movie that isn't like, it should be a cautionary tale. It's like don't put the cart before the horse. They basically like committed to the whole cast for this movie before Batman versus Superman even came out. They went with the direction not knowing if it was going to be received well, and the director had to step away from the production because his child committed suicide. They had to bring in a different director with a different vision, and there was a lot of reshots done. It's a messy movie made by they should have delayed it. And as a DC fan, it breaks my heart that this movie did so poorly. I was still able to enjoy it despite all of it, so it gets a thin station Bat Cookie from me.
But you are a very big DC fan. Boy.
So noogies from you guys?
Oh, yeah,
yes.
Noogie, yeah.
Dunkirk.
Did not see it. It sounded like it was interesting, but
The plot itself isn't very interesting, but it's a very immersive experience. Like the sound is what really makes the movie. You feel like you're there in the environments that these people are in, and for that, I'll sing its praises.
Yeah, I saw it. I liked it. I didn't think it was as good as a lot of people said it was, but I'd give it a Bat Cookie. I did enjoy it.
2-finger Bat Noogie.
Bat Cookie.
I was like,
Coco. Haven't seen this one. This is the Pixar movie that came out this year.
I would recommend. It's good. It's quite good, actually. I watched it with my fiance because she really likes it, and she's cosplayed the dog from it a couple of times. But also, I don't know. It was a good kind of like. It was highly predictable plot. Like you're not getting anything amazing out of it, but you are getting a good heartfelt Pixar movie, which I think is, good. Bat Cookie.
I'll give it a Bat Cookie. Why not?
I never heard of it. Bat Noogie.
The Lego Batman movie.
I still have not seen
I
that.
sing the praises of this one. It's the best Lego movie. Bat Cookie.
I'm still giving it a Bat Cookie because I do want to see it, and I've heard good things about it. And seeing how Batman is in the second Lego movie, and that was a result of that, I think, it's worth it.
I've seen one of the Lego movies. I don't think it was this one. I can't remember. I'll give it a Bat Cookie because I like playing with Legos as a little kid.
Get Out was a movie that came out this year, and it really surprised people because it did really well financially, considering it was an original concept. First-time film from Jordan Peele, who most people know as a comedian, but it was a horror film. I didn't watch it when it first came out, but I did buy it on DVD, and when I did watch it, I was impressed. Bat Cookie.
I still haven't seen it, but only heard good things, so Bat Cookie.
Was it on Netflix?
I don't know.
I think so.
I think I saw Jordan Peele, you said?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I saw it on Netflix. I liked it. Bat Cookie.
So now we're starting to realize that there are a lot of bad movies that did well and a lot of bad
good movies that did
bad.
poorly. Yes.
So this one is not in a case of that, though. Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Men Tell No Tales, the final, thank goodness, Pirates of the Caribbean movie. I didn't even see it because I didn't care to see it.
I've heard that it was better than the other ones after the original trilogy, so I might see it eventually.
Bat Noogie.
But it's hard to be worse than the fourth one was.
I didn't know they were still making Pirates of the Caribbean movies in
Sensation Bat
2017.
Noogie.
It was.
I didn't see it. Probably will never see it. Bat Noogie.
Jumanji: Welcome to the Jungle. So this came out at the very end of 2017, and it actually.
Okay, that explains why I feel like that should have been higher on
Yeah, because it actually did really well financially, but it earned most of its grosses in 2018.
Okay.
So,
I was surprised how far that was.
This was a great kind of like rejuvenation of the Jumanji franchise, if you want to call it that. I liked it.
Yeah.
Bat Cookie.
Bat Cookie as well. It was good. I like all the actors in it.
Is Jack Black in this one?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I saw it.
It was
chuckled.
funny.
Bat Cookie.
Kong Skull Island. Didn't care to see it.
Didn't
Did not
see
see
it.
it.
Bat Noogie.
Bat Noogie. It's too bad. They were trying to do something cool, but it's not going to happen.
War for the Planet of the Apes was an excellent movie.
Yeah.
Great conclusion to that trilogy. It's a shame it didn't do better.
Yeah, Bat Cookie. It was really good. It worked out. I liked it.
I think I've seen this one maybe. I'll give it a Bat Cookie. I don't know.
Transformers: The Last Night.
I remember seeing the preview for this and being like, why are they still doing this? Like,
Though there is this is the thing, the way that the fourth one ends, they could have done a better film. But this just feels like, and I've said this before on the podcast, it feels like they took a script for a King Arthur movie
and they just made it
and they
Transformers.
just kind of like inserted the Transformers into that.
I would still get a Bat Noogie if it was a King Arthur movie, because they've made like 4 or 5 King Arthur's movie recently, all of which were bad.
This is Bat Noogie.
Yeah,
The last good King Arthur thing was the TV show Merlin.
I saw this in theaters with 3 other friends, and I'm not exaggerating. I would have got up and left if my friends hadn't been there. I stayed at a charity.
Wow.
After the film, though, they said, yeah, we wanted to leave too. So if we had just communicated, we would have spared ourselves that agony. I don't remember what happens really. I just remember it being so bad. The absolute worst movie I've ever paid money to see.
Wow. Baby Driver. I have yet to see this, but I've heard nothing.
You need to watch this movie. It's amazing. I mean, I've always been a big fan of Edgar Wright's work, like Spaced, the Cornetto trilogy, Scott Pilgrim. Love all of those. This was like such a good movie. It's such a Edgar Wright movie, and I know it got a lot of flack. People saying it was more like, oh, it's like style over substance, but I'm like, no, like the love story is not super great and involved, but at the same time, it's better than your average Hollywood love story. And then also is an amazing movie with like tremendous stunt driving. The entire movie is set to music. Yes, Kevin Spacey is in it and he got canceled, but like, come on, it was a good performance by him, and it's a great, like, just an amazing movie. Yeah, love it so much. So much attention to details. Huge Bat Cookie for this.
I've also heard like a lot of people love it, like singing its praises, like Beef Pork Ribs did. I'd say it's a fun movie. I enjoyed it. I'd watch it again. I'd give it a Bat Cookie. I don't know if I wouldn't say it's amazing, but
Kingsman: The Golden Circle, an underwhelming sequel to the first Kingsman. I give it a Bat Noogie.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
is this the one where the bald guy is singing Country Roads
Yes, I think so.
and he gets shot up?
Something like that.
I liked that
I
scene.
honestly don't remember that movie.
Or is that from the first? No, I think that's from the second one.
It's
when they go
not
to
from the first
America.
one.
yeah,
yeah.
the Americans.
Yeah, there's a lot of like weird things and
Anyway,
senseless killing, but I'll give it a Bat
Cookie.
Cookie.
Bat
Oh,
Noogie.
Bat Noogie,
Sorry for me. Yeah.
And finishing 37th at the box office was Blade Runner 2049, which is a darn shame.
I still haven't seen it.
Oh,
I must
it's
admit.
such a good
I
movie.
do mean to see it, and I love the original Blade Runner, and I've seen interviews of Harrison Ford talking about it that make me want to see it.
It's great.
But I still haven't.
I'm just disappointed it didn't do well.
Yeah.
I've never seen it. I like Harrison Ford, so I'll give it a bad cookie.
Cookie. Finishing 39th at the box office this year, to my disappointment, the Power Rangers movie. It had so much potential, but then it ended up being such a jumbled movie. It felt mostly like The Breakfast Club, but then in the last 20 minutes, like, oh yeah, crap, this is supposed to be a Power Rangers movie. Throw on the costumes and do a generic fight scene in a small town.
I remember how excited you were for this movie to be a thing. Like, I remember us having a long conversation about it, and I said it wasn't going to do well.
You were right.
And I was right. And I'm sad that I was, but
they're planning another reboot.
It's like the Fantastic Four. It doesn't matter how many times you reboot it.
Yeah, I still enjoyed it, but I was underwhelmed, disappointed.
Man.
Two-finger Bat Noogie.
Bat Noogie, never seen it. Never seen anything Power Ranger related.
What? Oh my God.
Joe, average Joe, why are you surprised by that? I tell you all the time.
He doesn't like anime.
Is Power Rangers anime?
No, but it is heavily influenced by,
Well, more so, anyway. The Mummy, this movie with
that's
got
to be like the worst Tom Cruise movie, the worst box office Tom Cruise has done in a long time.
It finished in 40th place this year. It was meant to be the springboard for the Universal Monster movie franchise.
Oh yeah, but Kong Skull Island was also supposed to be part of that.
No, that's part of the Godzilla universe.
Right. I forgot those two are different.
But they'd announced a whole casting thing. Like, they had Russell Crowe in this one as Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. They had announced someone to be Frankenstein and the Bride of Frankenstein, and I think Johnny Depp was supposed to be the Invisible Man. Like, I remember there being photos of them all and being like, oh yeah, this is the start of our Universal movie monster series. And
they should have just remade the Universal monster movies properly and then made a thing. Like,
but this was that time when people were like, this was Justice League in a sense, trying to rush a franchise after not making
but
it.
Worse.
But worse.
Somehow.
I haven't seen it because I heard it was just awful.
It is just awful. It's forgettable. It doesn't have any of the heart that the original Mummy movies had, which were at least intentionally funny. It is unintentionally funny at times.
So Bat
but
Noogie?
But also just generally bad. Yeah, Bat Noogie.
The live-action Ghost in the Shell movie came out this year, finished 68th at the box office.
It deserved to be lower. I don't know. It was an awful movie. There's so many bad things about it. So,
I was still able to enjoy it.
I've
really?
never heard of it.
Well, because I hadn't really watched much of the anime before this. So
you just watched Arise, right? Before?
Yeah.
And that was your only.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
This movie got a lot of flack because they cast Scarlett Johansson in a role.
Yeah, I don't understand why that's what it got flack for, and
I
not
did
being
hear this
completely
on this
unoriginal and terrible.
Yeah.
It's Ghost in the Shell is a series, and a movie, and then there's also an anime series with it. Well, 3. Which was a lot about the kind of the thin line between or increasing sentience in AI and humans, and if you start, the age-old question, how much do you have to take away from a human for it to become a cyborg or a robot? And it has a lot of more existential and also more in a certain sense philosophical, because most people do have an artificial brain in that world. But it is the electronic brains are exactly like human brains, except you can put them in different bodies. But some people have if you've watched Altered Carbon, Ghost in the Shell is a much better version of that. And then, but the movie they made was just they took a few shots from the original movie and remade them exactly, but then took away everything that was interesting or good from the original movie.
Wow.
And
throwing a lot of shade.
It was a very bad movie. I did not like it. But the biggest flack it got was for casting Scarlett Johansson, even though Lieutenant Kuragarugi is clearly a white woman in the show, and it's an artificial body. It doesn't matter who plays her. Canonically, she's in an artificial body, not in her original body, and in the movie.
I'm rating us in. This gets a...
Bat Noogie. It was so bad.
I'll give it a Thin Station Bat Cookie. I still found a way to enjoy it.
I'll give it a Bat Noogie.
And then finishing 100th at the box office.
Oh, dear.
My Little Pony, the movie. the last time
only getting mentioned because you had a Brody phase.
Yeah, this was like when we covered it on the show. It was this is the last time I've watched anything My Little Pony related, which weird to think it was 3 years ago now, but I enjoyed it. It was fun. Emily Blunt was the villain. She had a great villain song, and there was a really good message in there about being different and being yourself. So
My Little Pony is a good kids show.
Average Joe.
I would let my kids watch it, but I don't. Yeah.
Bat Cookie.
Average
Bat
Joe,
Nuggy.
your brony phase is public knowledge?
Yes.
On the podcast.
You're a
anyways.
brave man.
Well, I have no shame in accepting this.
Yeah, that's a bat noogie for me.
Oh. Well, so looking over 2017 as a whole, it really seems like it was a bad year for movies. A lot of controversial movies were released.
Good year for video games.
Good year for video games. TV really seeing the influence of streaming in terms of just the new shows coming out, but also having football take over as the most watched TV show on TV. And then as far as anime goes, and there's kind of a mix of good and bad, and that seems to be like the theme of the year: good and bad, and some things that should have been good not doing as good, and some things that were bad that somehow still did well.
Yeah.
So that kind of, I don't know, that leaves me feeling really mixed inside. What about you guys?
I think the thing about this year is that I still, like, when I went through these things, the things that were bad, I didn't really remember them that much until I got this list and was like, oh yeah, this existed, and it was kind of bad. But the things that were good, I still remembered them, and I still have fond memories of them and of watching them or playing them. So I think that overall, it was a good year, I'll say. And I distinctly remember seeing Guardians 3 times in theaters, and it was great.
2017 was a good year for me personally, notwithstanding everything we've talked about. I'd say it was a good year. It provided some interesting content to talk about today, so if nothing else.
There you go. So this is going to go down in history as the longest episode of the Batchart podcast for sure. So we're not going to go and I know we have a piece of mail this week. We're not going to read it. But maybe, Minty Python, if you could remind the people how they can get a hold of us.
Okay. If you want to contact the show with a question or an idea for an episode, you can send us an email to
batjarpodcast@gmail.com
or you can tweet at us
at the Bat Cookie Jar.
We are available on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Music, Stitcher Radio, Spotify, SoundCloud, or wherever you get your podcasts. Share our posts on Facebook and make sure to like our page because we want everyone to join us inside the Bat Jar.
Yeah, so there we go. Minty Python, thank you for being here to be part of this conversation today. We're getting close to the end of the decade, guys. So come back to the Batchart podcast next week for our look at the year 2018, which is a year I'm going to be very excited to talk about. But, we've already talked a lot today. So if you guys are staying at home because you're working from home or because you're socially isolating yourselves, we hope that you enjoy spending time with us this week, and we hope you come back next week. So until then, I'm Average Joe.
I'm Beef Pork Ribs.
And I'm Minty Python.
Catch you on the flip side.
Bye.
Yep.